We have prayed already. I know it is the hardest time of the day to follow a presentation. Am I right? After a good meal, it's not easy, but we will try. We'll try. If at some point you feel you have to stand, just stand by the wall, but don't leave the room as much as possible. Good? Stretch yourself, but don't leave the room as much as possible. This morning, I started by presenting to you a key element of the model that I have been sharing with you about mobilizing partners for mission, or in an extended way, mobilizing people to faithfulness and partnership. One key action, and this is what we are learning now, one key intervention is topping up instruction. Let us invest in education. Promotion is good, but promotion has a limited effect in time. Once you have completed the project, people stop giving. If you rely only on promotion, you will have to find another promotion to keep people giving. Whereas if we base ourselves on education, the result is more sustainable over time. This is what we have been saying. And something important and essential is this idea of when baptized members are hearing about stewardship, make sure that it is not the first time that they are hearing about stewardship. That's why this theme is not instructing members, but topping up instruction. We assume that before people are joining the church, they have learned about stewardship. They have learned about their obligations when it comes to resources, talents, and financial resources. We ended somewhere around this slide. What should we teach? What should be the content of our instruction if we want to grow members in faithfulness and partnership? And this is where I'm coming with the three-legged instruction model. The three-legged instruction model. I don't know here in Nigeria, but I remember when I was a young boy in my small village, the old lady, my grandma, they will have a pot that has three legs, and they will usually cook on these pots. Most probably you have or you had that here in Nigeria with a very special name for it. And people say the meat that you cook in such a pot, they taste better than the one that you cook inside your kitchen. I can see El Dangana saying yes. I'm sure he has tried it. But this time we have eaten already. We won't talk more about food, but let's talk about the three-legged instruction model. This model is based on three things: educating about generating resources, educating about managing resources, and educating about giving. I have explained But I will repeat myself just for it to get properly in our mind. Why do we have to educate people about generating resources? I don't have to take long to explain that we are going through a global crisis, and some places, some localities, some countries are more affected than others, and some church members are more affected than others. In stewardship, we want people to partner with God, and we want people to raise their level of partnership. But for that to happen, people need to grow. When I say to grow, they need to grow their financial muscles. I know a country, because I used to visit this country in the past, where unemployment is 80%. Serious. Probably even more serious than here in Nigeria. In this country, if I keep talking about partner with the church, with your tithe and offerings, what am I saying? What am I saying? Only 20% of the people will resonate with that message. The 80 remaining percent, I'm only putting them on a guilty trip. I'm only making them to be frustrated. Therefore, my responsibility, our responsibility as a church, is to find ways with the limitations that we have to help our members to generate resources. It can take many forms. It can take many forms. Be creative. Be cognizant of the resources that you have as a church yourself. But I tell you, the small initiatives can bring big results. And this is one area, the responsibility of educating people about generating resources. There is something else. Educating people about managing resources. Many of our members are not faithful, not because they are not convinced about being faithful, but their finances are in a mess. I once talked with a union president. I was telling him, I observe that your participation rate is very low. He said, yes, it is very low. And I asked him, do you have any explanation for that? He said, yes, I do have one. And he shared this with me. He said, in my territory, let's say the dollar is the currency, but it's not the dollar. Let's say the dollar is the currency. He said, when a member is earning $1, 75 cents are used to service debt. You earn $1, 75 cents, you are servicing debt. This is telling me how deep and how serious the debt issue was in that territory. And because of that debt issue, people buying and living on credit, it was almost impossible for people to be faithful in tithe and offerings. Where is the solution? The solution is not to talk more about tithe and offerings. The solution in this specific case may be to teach people about managing their resources. getting out of debt or not getting into debt, teaching people about savings, teaching people about doing a family budget and how to stick to it. When we talk about financial stewardship, it's not only to teach people about tithe and offerings. Let us teach people to manage the totality of their resources. Because at the end of the day, it's not only the tithe and the offerings that belong to God, but everything belongs to God. And to be a good steward, it's not only about returning tithe and offerings, but managing the totality of their income. Educate people in managing resources. And finally, and this is what we have been doing, educating about giving. I have mentioned some reasons already. I will just highlight the third reason: Christ method. Let's do stewardship Christ method. What do I mean by that? Let us not only ask people, appeal to people to follow God's instructions, but let us do everything possible to attend to their needs. Because when we attend to people's needs, it becomes easier for them to respond and answer to God's appeal to faithfulness. The three-legged instruction model. Let's now talk about educating about generating resources. Helping two ways of achieving that. First of all, helping people to develop a growing mindset. Do you know that this is the greatest barrier to growth and development? The mindset. Many of our church members, they grew up with a mindset that tells them you can't do more, you can't achieve more, and they will go even as far as to say, to be successful is to be boastful. I choose not to be successful because I am a humble man. Terrible. This is terrible. Unfortunately, many people around, many good Christians, good believers, they are looking down on themselves. They are looking down on themselves, not acknowledging what they have received, not acknowledging what they can accomplish, not acknowledging the potential that God has given them. The greatest potential is latent potential. The greatest potential is dormant potential. Dear colleagues, dear brothers and sisters, if we can bring something to God's church today, is to help each one of our members to realize that God has placed something valuable in each of our pockets. Our pockets are not empty. God has given us the raw materials. He has given us a good brain. He has given us strength. He has given us energy. He has given us land. Let us use these raw materials of God. Let us move away from this closed mindset and embrace a growing mindset. You want your member to grow, change their mindset. Help them to think differently. And this is the hardest thing to do. It is the hardest thing to do. But I will just share briefly. If I was with the women, I would have said that. But there are still some women here and many men here. You know the story of the widow? The widow who came to the prophet Elisha. My husband has passed away. The creditors are coming to take my 2 sons as slaves. You know that story? Yes. What was the question of Elisha to this widow? What do you have? What do you have? This question may sound insensitive. I have lost my husband. I'm about to lose my 2 sons. I don't have money at home, and you dare ask me, what do I have? What was the intention? What was the intention of the prophet by asking this question? What was the first answer given by the woman? Do you remember the answer? What was the answer she gave? One person at a time. What was the answer? Nothing. That was the answer. I have nothing. But I don't know how she will quickly correct her answer, except a little jar of oil. And this is where the prophet wanted to bring this woman. Many of us, when asked, what do you have? Our first answer, without thinking, nothing. We have nothing to cope with the obligations of life. We have nothing to face the crisis. But the prophet, he is leading the woman to see what she really had. And you know, on that day, the miracle was not out of nothing. The miracle happened when the little oil went into the jars of the neighbors. When she chose to use what she had, taking advantage of the opportunities around her, there was a miracle. And this is what we need to teach our members. You have received. And in your neighborhood, there are opportunities right here in Nigeria. You don't have to go to UK for the opportunities. The opportunities are here in your neighborhood. When we use our God's given resources to take the opportunities, the result, with God's blessings, miracles, great miracles. This is how I define the growing mindset. Let us share that. Let us embrace it ourselves first and share it and see how we are going to release an energy in the church that we cannot suspect that this energy, that this potential has been here so long but has remained dormant. Where unemployment is a significant problem, or where people are just working for nothing, providing entrepreneurial education represents a decisive strategy to assist in generating resources. I don't have time, otherwise I would have quote from Sister White how she is encouraging God's children in this generation to become entrepreneurs, to become self-employed. These are part of her counsels to God's church in this generation. You may be asking, but how as a church, how as a district can I help in entrepreneurial education? Based on what I have studied in Southern Africa, I have observed something. Local churches who are providing entrepreneurial education, they are using two approaches. One I call localized, and the other one I call outsourcing approach. The localized approach is within your district, within your local church, there are people who are expert in some trades and they can train others. This is one way of empowering people to generate resources. I was impressed by what one pastor told me. He said, you know, before going to the seminary and becoming a pastor, I was a carpenter. Very nice. He was a carpenter, and he told me every district, especially in rural district that he was posted, he would try to teach one or two of his members about carpentry. This is localized. Probably you don't have the skills to be a carpenter, but within your district, there may be people who have got expertise and who are willing to share that. The church acts as a platform to provide this education. Let me share what another pastor shared with me. We will even plan days where we invite extension workers. I understood later that he's speaking about government workers, local government workers, specialists. Those are agriculture extension workers to come and train our members only how to till their fields, how to plant and preserve their crops and livestock. Simple. But the church needs to see that as part of its responsibility. Growing people, not only spiritually, but growing people in all aspects of life. Let me share this. Another pastor told me about the power of educating people in the area of generating resources. When a member, these are his words verbatim, when a member realizes that you are not only interested in the money that they gave to the church, but in their welfare, then they also return. When they will benefit from what you have taught them, they reciprocate by giving back to the one that is the church or through the pastor, because he has helped them to attain this kind of life. This is the rule of reciprocity, or if you prefer, the rule of gratitude. Another pastor put it this way: apart from relationship, I think from the little experience that I have, the other factor that is conducive for members to give is for the church to equip the members on skills, projects, and ways on how members can make life easier for themselves. They have tried and they are giving their testimony. Can this happen here? Can this be tested here? It may not work, but I think it is worth trying. It is worth trying to expand our education and to reach out to develop our church members. Some people don't need much, just words of encouragement, some motivations. Some will need probably a little bit more. But the little that we do will contribute to change reality. Your department, the Stewardship Ministries, has developed a book which is called Model Steward Canva. If you are really interested in growing entrepreneurs, self-employed in your district, in your union, in your division, I strongly encourage this book. The guy who wrote it, he's Dr. Ken Long, a specialist in business, but at the same time, he defines himself as the stewardship guru. He is merging together rules, principles of doing business with biblical stewardship principle. How much this book costs? Not much. It is free of charge. He wrote the book and he gave us the copyright. He gave the GC the copyright for 10 years. I strongly encourage you to download the book and to learn from. I know there are some lecturers here. I know there are some people here. Do you know that Middle East University, Adventist University in the Middle East, they call Ken Long, after seeing the book, they call him to teach about Christian entrepreneurship at their university this last summer. Just to tell you the value of the content of this book. Why not? Or you may have other books, but the idea is equip your church members. I know some of you have already liked our Facebook page, Dynamic Steward. This morning, there was a post on Dynamic Steward from whom? Ken Long, about the ultimate stakeholder in your business. We want to grow people, not just ask them to be faithful. Let us now move to the other section. I'm passionate about that. I like that. Educating about managing finances. Very key. Very key. How is the reality about debt and credit here in Nigeria? Is it something serious? Yes, so? I saw microfinance bank on the campus here. This gives me a little idea that this thing of credit and debt is also around. When the church talks about money, the primary goal should not be to influence members to give, but to assist them to manage the totality of their resources according to biblical principles. When you teach people to manage the totality according to biblical principles, giving is part of it. Giving is part of management. Giving is part of management. Do not only focus on giving. Teach people how to manage the rest of their resources. Unfortunately today, there is many studies that have established there is a significantly low level of financial literacy in the world and inside the church. You can know how to read, You can be computer literate and still be financially illiterate. Someone even told me, you can be an accountant and be financially illiterate when it comes to managing your personal finances. Many accountants are failing in managing their personal finances. It's different. And some of the indicators of that, free smart financial behaviors are often used as financial literacy. If you want to test your financial literacy, your members' financial literacy, these are the three key questions. Having a budget. Do you have a personal budget? Are you using your money using a budget? It may sound very simple, but a majority of people, except Nigeria would be an exception if it is not the case here. A majority of people are not creating and using a family budget. The second thing, the level of indebtedness. You know, in the past, people will contract a credit when you are desperate, when you have no other alternatives or options. But today, credit has become the first option. Isn't it? Because those who sell credits, they know you make more money by selling credits than selling other goods. Sell Apple, you will get some profit. Sell bicycles, you will get some profits. Sell cars, you will get some profits. But if you sell loans, you get bigger profits. There is a drive towards credit and indebtedness today. And this is a clear indicator of financial illiteracy. And there is something else. Preparedness for retirement. Colleagues, this thing will come faster than you may think. How are you preparing for it? How are your members preparing for retirement? Are we teaching them about these basic things? Budgeting, indebtedness, retirement, and some other things. If you want people to grow in their partnership with the church, equip them in how to manage their resources. Sister White wrote something. I like to quote Sister White because I believe she is the little light that brings us to the Bible. She is the light that we need today in this dark world. Many lack wise management and economy. She's not talking about the world. She's talking about God's people. They do not weigh matters well and move cautiously. Financial illiteracy. Such should not trust on their own poor judgment, but should counsel with their believers who have experience. Learn about managing finances and share that with your church members. Many do not remember the cause of God and carelessly expend money in holiday amusements, in dress and folly, and where there is a call made for the advancement of the work in home and foreign missions, they have nothing to give, or even have done what? Overdrawn their account. In other words, they are in debt. They are living on credit. Thus, they rob God in tithes and offerings. And through their selfish indulgence, they lay the soul open to fierce temptations and fail into the vials of Satan. Our members are vulnerable. Our members are weak to all sorts of temptations today because they are caught into debt. A member who is caught into debt would be easier for this member not to keep the Sabbath. You know that. A family who is caught into debt, the likelihood that there is adultery in this family is higher. When you are caught into debt, the likelihood that you steal is higher. And when you are caught into debt, the likelihood that you fail in tithe and offerings is much higher. Teach them the Adventist lifestyle. Teach them the Adventist lifestyle. And the Adventist lifestyle consists of staying away from debt as much as possible. This is the Adventist lifestyle. Brothers and sisters, your church, my church, can be a provider of financial education. We can become a center to teach people how to manage. Not only people who are inside the church, but even for the community. Do you know why the church can become a good provider of financial education? Because the church is trustworthy. People trust the church. People trust the church. The church is perceived as the place to learn what God says in all life matters. Do you know that most people, they trust more the church than many other institutions? And if we teach them principles of money, financial management, the likelihood that they will listen to us is higher. Something else, affordability and accessibility. How many of your members can afford consulting a financial consultant? Very few. Very few can afford seeking the counsel of a financial consultant, if there is one around. But the church can bring that to our church members. And something else, the church can bring scripture-based instructions about financial management. A secular financial consultant will teach you a certain way of managing, but the church will teach a scripture-based, will provide scripture-based education when it comes to financial management. I have to grow. We have to grow. If we want to make a difference, remember what we learned yesterday about trust. You remember that? People trust us when we demonstrate character and competence. If you demonstrate competence in this area of financial management, they will listen to you. You will make an impact. You will grow. Teach the biblical stewardship principle. God is the owner. We are the managers. Teach people about the power to implement financial decisions. You know, you go to a financial consultant who is not a believer, he will tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this, and do this. But then, something that he can't tell you is where to get the discipline to do that. But you, when you tell people manage a certain way, you can also tell people there is God who can help you to develop this discipline. And it does make a difference. Teach financial skills such as budgeting, saving, investing, managing debt, and credit management, and retirement. use multiple modes of delivery. The sermon can be one of them. Afternoon programs can be one of them. Financial seminars for 1 week can be one of them. Camp meetings can be one of them. Teaching the AY about financial management can be one of them. You know better. Use multiple modes of delivery. But there is one that I want to highlight. One-to-one. One-to-one. Because financial issues are usually very sensitive issues. If I talk now, I say, who has a financial problem? Who is caught in debt? Who is not able to repay his credit? Very few people will raise their hand. If there is someone, these issues need to be addressed on a one-to-one basis. Think of that. Create the space where people can come to you for advice. Another consideration that can help involve family units. Because most financial decisions are taken as a family. Woman and wife together. And even the children, the elderly children. If you teach only men, today we are more than 90% men. If you teach only men about financial management, you will fail. You will fail. Because the woman will put pressure. Why don't you buy that? Why don't you do it this way? Let us work together with the family ministries. With the family ministries, and together we teach people as a family how to manage resources. There is a book, another book. I have recommended Model Steward Canva. But when it comes to managing personal finances in the Adventist world, probably you know one that I don't know. If you know someone who has written a book on that around here, I'll be very glad to have a copy. But the one that I know and I recommend is Faith and Finance. Faith and Finance. Great book. And the good news, you don't have to pay for it. It's free. It is up to you to take this book and to present it as workshop to your church members. I will end here by saying this. Topping up instructions is really important. Really important. Educating people in managing resources, educating people in creating resources, educating people in giving. But education alone is not sufficient. And Sister White wrote about that. It would not by itself, education, bring financial giving up to the levels, not Sister White, I'm sorry, it is Smith and others. It would not by itself, education, bring financial giving up to the levels that their own Christian traditions would consider faithful. If you want to grow faithfulness, if you want to grow partnership, invest in the free-legged instruction model. Yes, no doubt about that. But instruction, education alone is not sufficient. In my presentation tomorrow, I will talk about the Queen strategy. The Queen strategy to grow faithfulness and partnership. May God bless you. Amen.